Welcome, guys. Welcome to episode 14 of Topeka Insiders. Today, I have the privilege of honor of having Brandon Hogan, owner of Electrical Specialists, here on the show today. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you, Chan. Thanks for having me.
So he's a video guru himself. So we're just talking about this before we start live. Well, Brandon, let's rewind real quick back to your early age that you started working. So what was the most profound memory you had about your very first job as a lawnmower?
That I could make money, and that is the more that I worked, the more I could get paid, and it was up to me.
That's awesome. So what was the motivation besides that, like behind you wanting to work for your brother? Money part of it, just independence.
I come from a big family of construction, maintenance, hard workers, and it was, of course, I've got also the camaraderie of my brothers and whatever they're doing, I want to do or do better, which is great to have that competition and camaraderie. But I mean, when I was 7 and saw them mowing, I didn't know anything about money, but I wanted to do it. I mean, it was just the thing to do is go out and get a job. So just kind of in our family, so wanted to do it as soon as I could. Actually had to wait several years because I wasn't old enough.
Oh, your family didn't think.
Yeah, there was an age where you could, so you don't cut your fingers off. They were probably right in a way that you shouldn't be 9 years old out there on a mower with no cover on the blade.
That's very interesting.
Times have changed.
I mean, we can tell you that. Me and Brandon have known each other for quite some time, and we've done some business together through our real estate. And I still remember the very first time I received I think it was an invoice or quote from you, and being a very big project. I think it's a medium-sized project. That was probably 2019. And before that, I had already known quite a few electricians. But sure, your paperwork was the most professional at that time.
In 2019?
Yeah. It was like we're just
I'm glad to hear that.
We're just talking. I think, some people are still using like handwritten stuff.
Unfortunately,
yeah. 2019, you were already digital. You're like, everything is like, the format was just really polished, really professional. I was like, man, that's the electrician we're gonna go with.
I'm glad you felt that way, because that was probably the first software I used that was actually software, instead of, anyone starts up, they use an email or a template you can download from Google Sheets or something like that. But I as soon as I had the idea to open a company, there was no question I wanted to be professional about it. So I quickly looked into, how can I make this one guy in a truck look like he might be multiple guys and actually have an office behind him. So, well, I appreciate you noticed that.
We're gonna dive into that here just in a little bit. So throughout your before you got into the electrical world, you had many jobs, and I would say, if you were to name one, what was the most profound one that you can say, hey, look, if I had a chance, I'll probably go back to it?
Besides electrical? It's a good question. I didn't even put it on there, but I did teach guitar for about a year. Of course, it was a side hustle.
Everybody's got secrets, but
yeah.
I know that about you, Brandon.
Because I didn't do a lot of research, it ended up being kind of a babysitting job. I did have a gentleman that was older than me that soaked up everything I could get him. He actually surpassed my talent level, and I sent him on to my teacher. But I probably got the most satisfaction out of that, which music is my passion. So that's kind of an easy one, I guess. But I guess that's, even though it's not on the sheet.
Right. I read about that, the bio as well. I mean, everybody's got a passion, but sometimes that, career might be different than passion. Sometimes
they collide and sometimes they don't, but there's always a way they're touching, even if you don't know it. There always are.
Right. So back in the 2000s, and I think from my understanding previously, the conversation and emails and stuff like that you shared with me, so your cousin was wanting to get started with electrical, school, and then there was no opening for you, so they put you in this category. Hey, look, you can go do commercial stuff. It would be the same thing. So tell how that conversation happened. Like, you found out, was it the same thing? Was it different, or you had no idea about it?
Ridiculously worlds apart. I tinkered with car audio. I love putting stereos in for my friends and figuring out how to make them work and make them go boom. And back when that was cool.
Yeah, it's still cool though.
In moderation. But so I decided after high school I was going to go to trade school and go to electronics. And like you said, my cousin had gone through 1 year, but he was on his second year. And I'm like, I'm doing that because that's the closest I could find to doing that. And they said the class was full. So it's like, oh, commercial electricity is the same thing. Couldn't be more worlds apart. One is sitting there soldering tiny little circuit boards, with their goofy little glasses on and putting robotic stuff together. And one is pulling giant wire with all your might, on a 3-story building, sweating your butt off outside in the elements, and hanging pipe all day. So worlds apart, but it ended up fitting me better anyway. I'm glad it worked out that way. And on the contrary, I had a friend who, after I had a year of class in, asked me, hey, what class are you taking? I want to do it. And I told him, and he went and signed up. It was full. And they said, but electronics is the same thing. So just take electronics. And actually now he's the vice president of a company that fixes postage equipment. So he went from service tech to leader of the service guys to managing the department to VP
Wow.
of the company.
Wow.
So it's funny how things work out, even though you didn't set them in motion purposefully that way. That seems to work out the right way if you let it. So
Right. I feel like a lot of things in this world that kind of happen that way, right?
Mhm.
So you spent quite some time on the roads, and then eventually that kind of really wore on you. Did it? Like you just be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna do something different. So when I was reading that part of your bio, so one question just came to mind. If you could go back in time, what was a day in life of a Brandon look like? And like, what you would wake up 4 o'clock and then get off at 7:30? Like, what would your day look like? Just one day.
Oh, I can give you.
Just give me
It's
one day.
burned into my brain. This is easy.
Okay. Well, I love to know that, because I have no idea what that world would be like to me, in my perspective.
Sure. So we'll just say 26-year-old Brandon working at Fort Riley, would get up at, alarm would go off at 3:45 back when I still used the snooze button.
That's crazy. 3:45.
Yeah. And then I'd get up about just before 4. If I had packed my lunch the night before, I'd take it, but there's no time to pack it in the morning because I think we had to leave. I would drive to my friend's house, who later was an employee of mine, good friend still. And we'd leave by 4:30. Get there. I think we had to be tools on by 6. So, but it's a process to get in the gate, go around. You're literally sweating before you even put your tools on from all the hustling and going through checkpoints, and then usually those jobs ran several years. We did a prison, we did a hospital. Almost doesn't matter. If it's cold, it's super extra cold because you're on the 5th story of a building with no windows. If it's hot, they board the windows in and there's no air moving, and you're wearing 80 pounds of tools climbing ladders, of course, with steel toe boots. And I mean, you're just sweating her to death. So it makes you tough. I'll say that. But
Jeez, man.
You do that all day. I'd bend pipe, hang it, hang a couple 100 feet, and probably 100 foot a day. I don't know. I remember how much I hung, but anyway, hang pipe all day, usually wrap up around somewhere between 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Days would be different. You got to get the project done.
Right.
So then, by the time you hung the things up and BS with the guys a little bit, you're getting ready to leave around 6 o'clock. It just seemed to happen that way. And then an hour and a half drive, and then get his house and then drive back to my house. And somehow it's 7:30, and I should be going to bed at 8 o'clock to get up at 4 a.m. But I'd stay up till 10. I was younger. I could handle it. Quite a day. I'd come home and let my dog out and eat as fast as I could. I think back then I'd probably have a beer and then go to sleep. Maybe take a shower if there was time. And
so 5 days a week?
6 usually.
Dang.
Those jobs, sometimes 7. And it's forced overtime. I don't care what they say. It's, hey, we need you guys. This phase of the job's really ramping up. We're behind. We're going to need you guys to please, wink, wink, come in on the weekend. Saturday, but Sunday if necessary. That means you're working all week. And sometimes it's 12, 15-hour days. And you can say, hey, I can't. My kid's got a ball game. You say that a couple of times, you're not working there anymore. They'll find someone else. So you commit. You just know that's the way it goes.
That's a culture, right?
Yep. When they say it's time to work, you don't say, sorry, I can't, or you're going to find a new job. So they can't force you, but they can force you to find a new job.
Mm.
So that's just the way it is. And back then it was okay. I planned on building a career and putting money away. So I wasn't in the family mindset anyway. So it worked for the time. I mean, I do appreciate those jobs. It allowed me, I made prevailing wage on jobs for almost 6 years straight. It allowed me to buy my first house with putting a lot of cash down, which I have a different idea on now. But at the time, I thought it was a great idea. And
It's still a great idea, man.
yeah,
it's a great idea.
And it put me in a good position.
Yeah.
But eventually it wore thin, and you know, things are what they are, and I had to think differently and find my way out. So,
and there we are, 2017. The orange shirt was born, electrical specialist, right? And
it was actually blue, but yeah,
it was blue
yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
I really like the orange on you.
I
So tell us how that came into fruition, like how electrical specialist came. I mean, you and your truck for the most part, but you look bigger, because I always felt like you had a crew behind you.
It was intentional.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
But yeah,
you got me on that one.
So anyone who knows me knows that I overanalyze things. I over research them. Even when I say that, I feel like I'm being facetious, because I feel it takes that much research to pull something off. Well, there is the paralysis by analysis theory in that if you analyze too long, it'll never happen. I try to find the middle ground and analyze more than most would, but still make it happen.
Right.
Maybe just a little bit later. But I forgot where I was going with that. What was the question again?
No, that's fine. How you decided to kind of start electrical specialist, and then what was the phase that where you kind of started just kind of the to bring this thing to reality?
Oh, yeah. So I was going that direction because I researched, well, when you start a company, you don't want to say in an email, you're pretty much saying I'm the only person that works here. And then the people don't take you very seriously.
Right.
So right off the bat, I was saying even the people's in person, we'll be there at 7:00 in the morning tomorrow. We'll be, we'll take payment. We
business 101, by the way, business 101. So you guys take.
Yeah. And I don't feel it was lying, because even when you're by yourself, you are an entity. It was no longer just me. It was me and electrical specialist.
Yeah.
So we're a team, we're a group, even though feels like it's just me. There's an EIN and a tax number that says it's not just me, because I have a social security number and there's an EIN. They're individual, depending on how you're formed. But
I 100% agree with your perspective.
Yeah.
It's
so
not deceptive at
all.
And
I advise anyone going that direction just to start that right off the bat. There's no like, I should wait till this point, you know. But I guess to get back to really what you're asking, when I decided to make the decision, I don't know exactly what year it was. It was just, I knew that I would like to have a family, and I was getting tired of traveling, and I knew that I'm not even going to meet anybody, to have a prospective family with doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And I wasn't in any hurry to get out. So I started watching video. YouTube wasn't really, it was probably a baby back then, it didn't have all the information that it does now.
Right.
So I read books. Anyone I knew. Old
school, man.
Yeah, I know. Right? I went to the library, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. And I started asking people. This was actually ended up being a thing that hurt me quite a bit. I would ask other small electrical contractors how they did it. What should I be doing? What I didn't realize is, you don't ask people who are unsuccessful. Just because they're in business doesn't mean they're successful.
100%.
And I would ask anybody who was doing electrical their advice and follow it, and didn't realize till later those people are out of business. But now, I was, some of the advice that I was following would have put me out of business had I continued to follow it. So it was, obviously it's a stepping stone, you learn.
Sure.
But
everybody goes through that, by the way. I mean, everybody goes through that.
And I just decided that in Topeka, your options for doing electrical, because I still had a passion for doing electrical, was residential, commercial. Well, if you're going to do commercial, you travel. That takes you out of town. That's not going to work for me. So I have to do residential. Residential electricians typically don't get paid as much as commercial electricians. Well, you got to think a commercial job is a multi-million-dollar job. A residential job can be $100 job. So typically you don't get paid as much. And there's really no insurance. So you have to be self-insured, which means you're going from $30 an hour to $20 an hour. And now you're paying your own insurance. And now you're at $10 an hour. So you had to weigh those and balance those options. And so what I came up with from my analytics was, okay, if I run an electrical company the right way, it's going to take a long time, but I can make what I need to make, stay local, and offer other guys what I wanted the whole time.
Right.
I can build that. That was kind of the mind shift.
That's amazing. So right around 2017, you kind of bring this thing to reality, and then with the concept and analyzing the local market, and then the whole thing came about. I think that's probably right around where I used your service for the first time or second time.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it, right?
Yeah.
So what has been, I mean, I see your stuff on Facebook all the time. By the way, Brandon does a lot of videos on his social media platforms, and he has a lot of informative videos, and he knows what he's doing. What has been some of the most satisfying jobs or residential jobs that you remember?
Oh, there's so many. It could be the smallest thing to the biggest thing. Yesterday, the guys had a really hard service call. They had to work late. I didn't even do it, but I can still, have fulfillment and enjoyment seeing my guys be the hero. I don't get to wear the cape much anymore because I'm in the office, with phones and taking care of people. But I still get to put my guys in position to help. And this is a super simple one, but yesterday they found a hidden box. The people had just bought the house not too long ago. It had been previously remodeled, and whoever the previous owners had remodeled the basement or finished it, didn't get rid of any of the junction boxes, the electrical where the lights used to hang in the basement.
Right.
And one of the plugs upstairs wasn't working. So after a couple hours of trying everything, and normally we can find it in a box that's exposed, the problem, well, we couldn't find it, but a couple red flags led us to believe there was a hidden junction box. So we got permission from the owners to open the ceiling in the basement. Lo and behold, there's a box right there, and the wire nuts had actually melted off of the wire. Bad connection, so it was just an arcing and drawing heat. They literally could have lost the house, and that's it. I mean, we don't want to talk about loss of life, but I mean,
right.
Just to find something that could be that big of a hazard. Nobody wants us to, when we come over to fix something, we're all hoping, including us, it's a 30-minute fix.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 or 4 hours into it, you're lucky that we found that, and how many more of those are there, unfortunately. But to be able to help somebody, during, perfect example is winter storms. Storms come through in the winter every year, knock down trees, knock down power lines. People that are on oxygen are without power. As silly as it is, people with CPAP machines that can't sleep without power. And to be able to, and we can't always because we're pretty busy, but to be able to get their power on the same day, they couldn't be more thankful. And it makes us very happy, that we were able to do that. So, in commercial, you don't get that. It's a big factory. You show up, you put your tools on, you bang out the widget, and you go home, and you get yelled at to go faster. They crack the whip on you. Some people love that. Most of my family works in factories or worked in factories, so I know the model. But to be able to go into people's homes, fix what's wrong, and it's a win-win, you can't really beat that.
That's an amazing story. So what sets your company apart, electrical specialists apart than some of the competitors we have here? Because we have some really big names here in town, but
Sure.
you're always the first one that comes to my mind as far as electrical needs and stuff like that. Like, what's your core value? Let's put it that way. You tell your guys, like, what will you tell your guys?
Well, family is our number one core value, and that leads to what sets us apart. We do have more, but I don't want to beat on those. We'll just go with family, because this is why I did it. I left doing commercial to be more family oriented. So I don't really even want to stray from that, because you can't have a family without being home all the time, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what I set out to do, and I've never lost this, is still what I'm doing, is I want to create the job that I never had and offer that to people in Topeka or in the local area, in the local market. Because as far as I know, and you can prove me wrong on this, as far as I know, there's no residential electrical contractor that pays even close to what commercial does and provides insurance. And as of July 1st, we rolled out insurance. And as far as I know, you'll have to prove me wrong on this again, we pay top of the market, and we try to pay more. And my intention is to pay our guys absolutely everything we can and provide them with insurance and keep them local. That's impossible. Like nobody does that around here. Even small residential electrical contractors in Topeka travel because there's not always that work. Obviously, building that structure and that skeleton and the base to allow that to happen and stay busy in the off season, because November to February, not people don't really want you in their house on Christmas. You know,
Right,
they're
right,
spending
right.
money on stuff they haven't got taxes back.
Right.
It's a slow season. So it's tough to navigate that and pay extremely well and have insurance. No wonder people don't do it.
Right.
But that's my intention. And I'll just say it. I mean, our employees come first, followed closely by our customers. But you can't have good care and customer service unless the employee's 100% satisfied and like it and like what they're doing. It doesn't happen.
No.
If they're chasing the next dollar, their mind's not going to be on how can I make sure the customer is happy with what I'm doing? How can I make sure I'm doing it right, like I was taught to do? They're thinking about, hey, you know, I'm going to go on some interviews over the weekend and I'd like to make $2 more an hour, or
Right.
I can't afford to take my kid to the hospital. So, you know, that's a little dramatic, but it literally does come to that. I know people that don't go to the hospital because they can't afford it, and it's maddening. I've dealt with it personally for a long time. Making good money, no insurance. You're not really making good money if you don't have insurance.
Right.
It's just, you know, so that's my intention. And I really, I can already see, and I know we're serving the customer better. I mean, just straightforward, we're not an electrical company, we're a customer service company. And a lot of you people who are starting businesses, make sure you understand that, know what industry you're actually in, because we're a customer service company that happens to deal with electrical. Everything we do is customer service. So when I say our employees come first, I mean that to take care of our clients in the best way we can, because that actually ensures that our clients are taken care of if our employees' issues are resolved before they come to work, you know. So
thank you so much for sharing that, Brandon. I mean, this is gold, pure gold to me. Whoever is watching this, you guys are just getting this golden nugget.
Well, it's,
you know, from Brandon for free.
It's a passionate thing for me because that's what I struggle with. I love the industry. I've dedicated my life to it so far.
Yeah.
Obviously. Who knows where I'll go from here, but I'm going to make this happen. So I'm dedicated to it, and
you're doing a great job, man.
Rolling out the insurance is huge. So I'm
very happy for you, for the people that work for you, and also the families here in town, in Topeka, surrounding areas, who can benefit from Brandon's hard work and his team's hard work. You know, this is huge. And I know that you're going through a lot and you're still striving to bring your company to the next level. This is huge. I mean, I like to see more local people like you here to stay locally.
Sure.
So next question, because I know a lot of times you work with the homeowners. So what has been some of the common problems people ignore or people call you about as far as electrical needs? I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff just from me selling houses, right? So like,
I feel like that's two questions. What are things people ignore, or what are things people call me for?
Right. So go ahead. Just
either one
or both.
Okay. Well, got to be careful how all this is said. I mean, as simple as that box yesterday.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, and I can say this, that the people yesterday did not cover that box, but you get what you pay for. We're not the cheapest people in town, and there's a reason for it. I have to pay my guys well so they can do a good job for you. And to do that, I have to charge more, but we offer more value than you can get anywhere else.
Right.
And I don't just say that like everyone else says it. It's my intention to make sure that happens. We call you before we ever leave. As soon as we schedule the job, you get a text confirming who's coming and when and what they're doing. We try to call you, in the busy season is tough, the day of, but we do have on my way text. We try to be upfront with all pricing, and you know exactly what and you mentioned, I guess it was a while ago that you got that invoice or estimate, but
yeah,
it says exactly what we're doing and exactly the price.
That's actually one of the aspects that impressed me a lot. There was no because you really broke it down to where exactly what you would be doing.
And it's difficult to do that. And don't get me wrong, things do change. When we get there and something comes up, you know, I try to be upfront with people and say, you know, just in case something happens, say we open a wall and there's a gas line going through there and we can't put the boxes where we said we would, we'll have to have that conversation. Is that something that you'd be okay with? And Nobody likes hearing that, but they say, yeah, of course we can have that conversation. But I have to put that in there. And I've learned from my coaching, you have to, because when we do open the wall, if we just said, no, we're going to stick to our price, we go out of business.
Yeah.
We can't do that. I
Right.
mean, that's a $3,000 change or something like that. We can't just eat it. And, we got to do right. And then the warranty we're giving you, which is top of the industry, you won't have because we won't be around anymore. So it's just,
That's huge.
it's all fair. And,
That's
and
huge.
it depends what people are looking for. If someone's looking just to finish their basement quickly, and they have a budget and here they can't go past this, there's probably a better person for them to take care of their options. But if someone's looking to get something done right, where they don't have to worry about it at all and they want it done now, that's really what we're for.
That's awesome. Brandon, thank you so much for sharing that. So just for all the viewers on this video, I'm going to share something with you before I forget. Brandon's a contractor. I work with a lot of contractors. One thing, ever since I got into real estate career, one thing I have never done is to negotiate prices with contractors. I've never done that my entire career. And I urge you guys not to do that either.
Unfortunately,
am I right?
No,
am I right?
absolutely. There is no negotiation.
There's no negotiation, but some people would do. I mean,
I used
hungry.
to when I was, and that's why people go after inexperienced younger contractors, because they don't know their prices.
Right.
They don't know, and just like I didn't. I went into major debt. I mean, I consider it major debt in my first 3 or 4 years. I thought I was doing well, but I didn't know my numbers. And at the end of the year, I owe more than I make.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally paid to do work for a couple of years. I paid for those projects and I didn't make any money.
Right.
And until I figured that out and learned the cost of doing business, when somebody says, well, you got the job if you come down $3,000. Well, that means I lose money on the job and I'm going to go out of business. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, well, if I had $3,000 to take off of it, that means I was really taking advantage of you for $3,000. So did you think I was, but it's really hard to have those conversations. It's just,
sure.
Well, I'm sorry, sir. That's the price because that's what it cost. And if it doesn't work out, feel free to give us a call back.
You got to stick it to your guns.
Yeah. And it's nothing personal at all.
Nothing personal at all. So piggyback off of what you said here, Brandon. So the reason why I want that bring out to all the viewers who are here is you get what you pay for, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately,
my grandma said it.
Fortunately and unfortunately, right? Because a lot of times people feel like, oh, I'm negotiating a better price. You might have a better price on paper, but at the end of the day, as a consumer, you don't get the best quality. 65
to 75% of our work is going back and fixing the mistakes from the cheap contractors.
Did you say 65%?
Almost all of what happened yesterday, that exact same story, cover to box. When they cover up boxes in the ceilings of houses, you are putting the fire hazards in houses, and there's usually 10 to 15. So you just guaranteed a problem from that person. If not, an emergency. You hire somebody cheap. There's so many sayings. You're going to pay more for it later, but there's a reason that we have to get master's license and have to get licensed and have to pull permits. You have to get somebody who knows what they're doing. And unfortunately, it costs more money to pay someone who knows exactly what to do, who's a specialist or who's a master at what they do. That's who you want.
Right.
If you can try to save some money on it, but you're going to pay more for the mistake later. And that's, unfortunately, most of the service calls that we go on are mistakes that were made by a cheap contractor that didn't know what they were doing. They were trying to do the right thing, but they had no idea.
Right.
And there's things that you wouldn't just know by common sense about electrical that you have to know by studying and taking classes and reading the code book and understanding the code book to know why it's a fire hazard. Otherwise, common sense would say, well, this should work. Why can't I just put a wire nut on these 2 wires and shove it inside the wall and plaster the wall shut?
For your field, I feel like a lot of times the common sense we believe in, like average people we believe in, has nothing to do with the expertise at all, because
it's any industry is that way.
For example, though, I would not do an open heart surgery on myself just by YouTubing it, right? I mean, there's no better knowledge than that.
I don't hire my butcher to put up my gutters,
right,
or to re-roof my house.
Great example. I got to share this with you, believe it or not. So we're talking about these common issues. So there was a house in Lawrence, a very expensive house, and there was an electrical outlet under the sink in the kitchen, and the plate was missing. So the homeowner thought it was a good idea, just put some what do you call that thing?
Gray tape,
No, metal wool,
steel wool,
steel
yeah.
wool. What do you call that thing? Material just in there. The home inspector found this, and you got to remove that immediately because if you still want your house. And then the homeowner was like, "Oh, I thought that was fine."
A lot of people do that because they've been told. I think it's
The mice.
yes, exactly, to stop mice.
I don't know who started that, but that guy
But
should be held accountable.
yeah, there's so many things you could pick apart like that. I wouldn't even know where to start. But that's most people unfortunately don't do any electrical maintenance on their house for 20 to 30 years, even if they lived in it the whole time. Don't do any maintenance.
I did not know that was a thing. So let's talk about it. So what do you mean by electrical maintenance?
So smoke detectors
Okay.
only, I mean, this is just one thing.
Okay.
Smoke detectors last 8 to 10 years and they expire. You've been in tons of homes and you see yellow smoke detectors.
Oh yeah.
It's not because they were yellow because yellow was cool in the 70s, which if it's made in the 70s, they're not going to work. That's a guarantee that they might kind of work, but they're not reliable. They're yellow because it's actually the law for them to paint it with an oxidizing spray that turns yellow after 8 to 10 years, so you know to replace it. You go, oh, that's ugly.
Dang.
I need to replace it. So you don't even know you're replacing it for safety. You think you're replacing it to make it look better.
I did not know that at all, man.
Yeah, most people
awesome.
don't. Most people don't. And I didn't in my own house. Honestly, it was something I had to learn. But your electrical system, on average, needs updated in some way about every 10 years. Most electrical systems don't get updated for 50 years. You look at a home that's 100 years old, and I can tell you, who knows how many remodels it's had, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I can tell you how many times the electrical system's been updated, and it's usually once, because the old screw-in fuses are falling apart. So they had to redo the panel, but all the wiring in the house is from 1905 or 1890. And they only replace the devices when they're falling apart. Well, you can imagine if the front of the device is falling apart, what's happening behind it. Any bad connection becomes loose and it arcs, and it's a heat source. It's a fire hazard. Any backstabbed outlets, I'm sure you see it all the time.
Right.
If you go to your house and pull out a switch or a plug and the wires are just stabbed into the back and not around the screw, they're going to come out. It's an inevitability. Your house shakes, your house moves. In the 60s and 70s, these are really big. They still sell them. I don't know why, but I swear it's for like a homeowner to be easy just to stab them in there.
Right.
But it's just two pieces of metal that like this, and you shove the wire past it. And as the house shakes and moves, it literally pulls out.
Oh, okay.
Those are every other service call we go on for plugs. That's what it is. And so we can come fix that one plug. Well, common sense tells us, and this is something I didn't think about till not too long ago, every other device in your house is a fire hazard too. So yes, we can fix this one, but how many times do we need to come back?
Right. Right.
And even if you're comfortable changing them out yourself, do so. And you can even just take the wire off, strip it out, and put it around a screw. Just do that. If you don't want to pay someone to change them, there's so many ways to make your house safer that people just don't think about. We all have lots of things going on, but most people's electrical systems are out of date and actually are a safety concern. We work a lot with a company here in town, HVAC. All the new high efficiency furnaces have a very, very touchy circuit board. And they even tell clients when they put these in, you need a surge arrestor. And I'm not sure if are you familiar with surge arresters?
Yeah, a little bit.
Anytime a lightning strike or whenever you cut the lines outside, there's a surge that goes through your system. Anything with a circuit board, every appliance you have, down to your blender, your dryer, your washing machine, they all have, everything's digital now. But as everything becomes more digital, they're more susceptible to surges. I've got clients where there was a lightning strike, didn't hit their house, just close proximity strike. They lost every appliance, the garage door opener,
Wow.
the ice maker in the freezer, the furnace. Those furnace boards aren't cheap.
Wow.
And it's just that we're in the day and age now where you need one. And I'm not here to push it at all. I'm just telling you, we see this all the time, so I'm just here to inform. You can do what you want. I'm going to take care of myself and my things and let you know how things are, but it's up to you what you do with it. And of course you got to put money. that is a tough thing is who do you know that puts money away for electrical fixes?
Very few people.
Not me. I never did.
I don't.
Right. And until it's an emergency fix. So that is one of the unfortunate things about this profession is now I don't want to say most of the time, but a lot of the times we go to do a job like that tree falls on your service and pulls it off the house. Who wants a $5,000 job fix right now when they don't have the money? They didn't put it away.
Right.
You know, we do offer financing for those unfortunate situations, but nobody wants to do that. We don't want to come in the freezing cold and fix it either. But I think, I mean, people should be financially educated. I wish they would teach stuff like that in schools because these things are going to happen. If you own a home, things are going to happen.
Right.
The longer you live there, you're guaranteed for things to happen if you haven't put some money away, you know. So we get a lot of not very happy clients that, you know, we're saving them, but at the same time, they have to pay us to do the work. And
right.
No one wants to pay for something they didn't see coming. I've been victim to it myself plenty of times, owning several houses. So I get it.
Well, that's some really good information, Brandon, by the way. Just so really thank you. I'm really grateful for you just sharing that stuff.
Sure.
So now you have few people work under you. So what has been, how did you go about building this team and making sure that all of these individuals would execute on the same level as you? Because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, you have that pursuit of excellence all the time, right?
Sure.
You want to go there. That's how you do. So how do you put that onto your guys to make sure they do the same?
I think the first layer of that, which I think almost all entrepreneurs struggle with, is letting go. Is that, you know how hard it was to hire my first guy? So my first two guys that I hired, I think they handed me tools for like a year. Because every time I give them something to do, they'd screw it up. Well, they didn't know how. Because I had no time to teach them because, you know, we got to be busy to make money.
Right.
And I wasn't charging near enough. So we had to constantly work fast, which means the quality is not going to be as good. And we have to go from one fire to another. And they weren't fast enough to produce. So I literally did the work while they stood behind me and looked lost. Because I had all these plans to train and make a training program. There's no time.
Right.
And I wasn't charging enough to have enough money coming in to make that happen. I didn't know any better.
Right.
So I hired guys early on, but I didn't know how to utilize them. And I love building things. That you have an entrepreneurial spirit as well. So I mean, I think I spent so long building the wheel that I finally realized after probably 3.5 years that maybe the wheel's already been built and I don't necessarily have to I can take a wheel that's already been created and make my own notches in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I hired coaching. And the first thing coaching taught me was training, make systems and processes that are repeatable. And that's when I really finally started being able to train employees. The next step is, and this is for you guys who are in the field, and it doesn't have to be technician or construction, it could be anything.
Right.
But when you're out there yourself, you can't get to the next level without replacing yourself. It
doesn't happen.
No. And there's nothing wrong with the guy that wants to just do all the work, you know, work for a couple months really hard and then take a few weeks off. That does exist. You can have, that's the American dream that can be had. But there's a cap. And you'll never get past that cap. And you might be okay with that depending on your style of life, you know, right, what it costs to have the perfect life that you dream of. Maybe all you want to do is fish all the time. You don't need a whole lot for that. But if you want, you got to decide how much you want. And most of the time that means you got to replace yourself in the field and trust somebody enough to do what you would do. They're going to make mistakes and you can fix them, but you got to be able to replace yourself in the field. And I finally did that a couple of years ago when I hired my mentor, Steve. Brought him in so he could add the element to the company that I couldn't. And that did take a lot of, I don't know what's the right word, but it was scary.
Try and error. You're
not going to want to pay someone as much as you have to replace you. That's all there is to it, but you have to. You just have to
really, really well to kind of replace you.
What it took for me was, how long do you want to suffer until you're not scared anymore? That's when I was going into debt. I was working my tail off 7 days a week 12 to 18-hour days. Oh, eventually it's going to pay off, and my debt would just accumulate. And I'm living, on beans and rice, going, well, a couple more years of this and it's all going to pay off. It doesn't work like that. Eventually, I forget how Dave Ramsey says it, he's got a good saying on it too, but until you're tired of how bad it is, or maybe it's Tony Robbins, you don't make the change until it hurts so much that you have to make the change, and that's where I ended up, is like, I can't do this anymore. I physically can't do it. I mentally can't do it. And somehow I didn't have a family. I wonder why.
Right. Yeah. I hear you.
So eventually it was just the pain of not doing it superseded the fear of doing it. And that's what it takes for most of us, is can't do it anymore. Got to make the decision. Either got to wrap up shop or make that leap. And
that was wow.
Yeah.
That was profound.
Well, I think we all,
Brandon's got a lot of knowledge in between,
I just repeat stuff that I hear.
Oh, come on, man. He's been so humble. Honestly, just from me sitting down here with him, I just learned so much just within the past 20-30 minutes.
This guy's read more books than I've seen.
Oh, come on. That was one of the purposes of this show here, is just really to share conversations like this with people from Topeka, from all over, as long as you understand English, to really benefit from this. Because at one point we all gonna move on, might be getting to a different adventure, different phase of life. Hopefully some of this information from this website, from this episode, would benefit you in some shape or form. Brandon, let me ask you the last question here, because I really want to know, what's your vision for your company the next 5 years? So 5 years from now, what do you see? Number one in town?
Well, of course, but I
love that.
I don't want to categorize necessarily. Okay, here you go. I want to be the number one place to work.
Okay.
We just made top 3 of the what's the thing called? It used to be Best of Topeka, and now it's Topeka Choice Awards.
I think so.
We just made that. Which is, thank you everybody for voting. I really appreciate it. It takes. We've made the top 5 like 3 years in a row, but never broke that barrier, and I appreciate everybody for helping out with that. But literally, I know to be successful, it's all about who's under you. Mm-hmm. So this company is more about my employees than it is me. And I would like to say that a 5-year goal is just to be the best place to work, which all those things I told you about before, to pay them the most, insurance, keep them local. I'm just going to keep working towards those goals, and that's all the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah.
Thank
you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
So, throughout the years, I've referred some really picky people to Brandon, and they all
thanks a lot, man. Yeah.
But they all came back saying, some of those guys, I mean, I don't want to name any personal names here, but I think a specific one guy came to mind. I think you guys became good friends because how picky he was, and you were able to deliver.
I don't mind that, to be honest. I'm just, as long as they can take being straight. Usually people who are picky, it's not necessarily a bad thing. They know what they want.
Right.
And I know what I can offer them. So it's just, here's what you want. Here's what I can offer. Does it work? No. Okay. Yes. Let's go.
Right.
Some people are actually easier to work with that way.
I found it that way too.
If you can read what they really want, and not just read their body, what it seems like they're doing.
Right.
Because there are some really good clients out there that, even recently I've gained some clients who 2 to 3 years ago I would have ran from. So I would have heard some key things that I've been taught to listen for,
right,
and ran. But I'm like, you know what? My coaching has taught me to really actually listen to what they're saying, and not necessarily the words, but what's their actual pain point. A lot of people that say, I just fired my last 2 electricians. I want to give you a shot. The young guy goes, oh yay, you're usually the next person getting fired. But not always. Some of those people actually did have a bad experience. And you're able to come in and say, well, look, I'm not sure what they did, but you just have to be very meticulous on your offering and say, here's exactly what we're going to do. And we're not doing any more or any less. And here's exactly the price. And a lot of times they don't even know what to say, because they're not used to that.
Right.
They're used to the run around and the not sure. And you might show up on this day. And so when you give somebody something they're not used to, sometimes that's it. They're just going to use you forever now.
Right.
And that's the intent. We're, not every company is for every person. So it's all about the fit, but it's definitely I've grown a lot in the ways how I see people. when they come to me with what they need and what they want, I can more straightforward know if it's a fit or not, and kind of read through what they're actually after or their needs.
I'm so glad you jumped on this show, by the way, accepting the offer of jumping on there to share all that stuff. So thank you so much for your generosity. I'm going to post Brandon's company in the description of this video. So if you guys ever have any electrical issues, commercial or residential, give him a call, give his company a call. You will not be disappointed. I guarantee that from my personal experiences. So
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brandon, for your time.
Thanks, Chen.
Alrighty, thank you guys.